if anybody were to say to me, uh, murder in swimwear or murder in pajamas, I'm going to laugh because yes, it is what's happening. We either wear the traditional kimono and we work with grips, or we go sans kimono and we work without those same clothing grips. At the end of the day, they're still a human being that we're trying to fight, and it's just the mode in which we fight. So when I say be so good the rules don't matter, I also mean be so good the format doesn't matter. So when someone comes up to me and they say, I don't want to do the gi, it's hyper unrealistic. And I go, oh, I'm sorry. So you want me to wear my skin tight shirt made of Lycra and my shorts with stretchy inlay crotch area, and you think me being without shoes and in that attire is more like what you're going to find out on the mythical streets where fights happen every day? Because no gi is more realistic, right? It's like, well, they're not going to cross choke me. And it's like, no, but you don't think I'm going to grab you by something and use it against you? Have you not seen two ladies fight on the internet? Hair exists. Just hair exists. And so when I have ladies coming up to me saying, hey, can you teach me a hair grab defense? Oh yeah, sure. Grab here, do this. Okay, what about a ponytail grab? I've done so many workshops for self-defense, and they're almost entirely made of women. And every single time it's a hair grab defense. It's a hair grab defense. It's a purse grab defense. It's something where it's like a thing you don't encounter in a sport jiu-jitsu world. So barring my competition success, I want the martial arts to be martial first, art second. Problem is kind of equivalent to something you and I had talked about recently. Arthur Brisbane was a journalist in the late 19th century into the early 20th century, and he had a lot of really great quotes. Most human beings who are alive today in some kind of English-speaking world have heard at least one of his quotes, which is, use a picture, it's worth 1,000 words. And it's so simple, and it derives an incredible point, which is you can extrapolate a lot of information from a small source sometimes. The problem is we take that to be an absolute statement. He didn't say always use a picture. It's better than words. That's not what he said. Use a picture. It can be worth 1,000 words. Supplement. In addition to, not replacement. Okay? Now, the same guy, Arthur Brisbane, he had another saying. He said the dictionary is the only place where success comes before work. Okay. I get it, the alphabet being alphabetical and all that, but that's the brilliance of it. Success doesn't come before work anywhere but in the dictionary. You want to be successful, you have to keep working at it. Or as I tell my students, you know how to spell success? It starts with suck, but then you got to keep going. We have that ugly duckling phase, and most people can't get out of that because we're not willing to be vulnerable. We're not willing to be ugly in the situation, and we want to stress that we're the best versions of ourselves. And this is why social media is terrible, right? Because it's like, it's a bunch of you putting on the face of your best self. One of the critiques that I get often, or not critiques, but one of the statements that gets thrown around is people like that I show my losses. And I have no problem talking about my losses. I think my losses are great because if I don't accept that that was a part of the game and I don't celebrate it as what it was, which is look at that great spot where I got. Now, here's the thing. You show me two of the same video with the same ending. And that's the real trick, which is if I was able to be beaten with the same move every time, I'm just bad. I'm just bad at that move. But if it's really hard to get me in the same thing often, that's good. That means I'm learning from my mistakes. Why wouldn't I celebrate that loss? That loss was a pivotal moment where that was the last time that move became easy for somebody.
Yeah, it's like the rules of thirds. So probably like everywhere you see three things. The first one is a rare occurrence. Second is a coincidence. Third is a pattern. If you have three videos of the same thing, there's definitely something. I mean, you should have saw it the second time at the very least. But if you have three videos doing the same mistake, there's a pattern there. That's if you don't fix it, the fourth one just looks stupid.
Correct. The vast majority of people who train this sport, they train until they get to a point of competency, but not to a point of mastery. And I know later on here we were going to talk about this, but I'll just say it now. A lot of beginners practice until they get it right, but the true professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. So we had alluded to it earlier when we had said the person who wins the world championships every year is the person who makes the least mistakes. It comes to back down to your training. If you're not willing to put in the reps to say, I need this to be perfect with frequency, and I need mess ups to be infrequent, I am accepting that there is a wide variance for everything, and that I will also accept that there are no absolutes in jiu-jitsu or no absolutes in fighting, no absolutes in whatever martial art discipline you're trying to do. But I want to just be better and take those gaps where the thing has the most variance or the most chance for failure and shorten that gap. That's what a real professional does. They're not saying I'm getting it to zero. They're saying I'm getting it to a small enough margin to where I don't have to think about it. When I look at certain world records or achievements, there are so many athletes out there who just, they have differentiated themselves from the field, and it's usually in their practice. When you hear that, George St. Pierre hasn't fought MMA in years, but he still does an ice bath every morning, still trains, still stretches, still active. If the guy decided to come out of retirement, I please, dear God, hope he doesn't. But if he did, could he be competitive? And the answer is yes, he could be, because he prepares better than most other people could even imagine preparing. And it's not that I think to be a professional in any endeavor, you need to do that work behind the scenes to the point of suffering. But there is a degree of off the camera work, not in the spotlight work, that has to supersede the day of action with the iceberg effect. You should be doing 90 times more, 90% more out of that day in the spotlight than the day of. So the phrase I sometimes use is, no millionaire made their millions working a 40-hour work week. You showing up and just clocking in isn't going to get you to that next step. It's the extracurriculars. It's the things you're doing off on the side that makes the difference. And, I've told this I've told this story so many times now that people make jokes about it. But me in the airport waiting for my flight, and I'm doing gripping drills, right? And just switching my grips, grabbing my feet and doing toe holds and kimuras. And yeah, I might get a weird look from some hoi polloi, but last I checked, if he's not paying my bills, I don't pay that person any mind. So why is it so hard to just go about my day, not worry about what people are thinking, and train where I can? Because if my competition aren't doing that in the airport, they're not doing the extracurricular stuff, they're not doing the things off the clock, great. I'll have an easy day at the office. And I have no problem just winning on the strength of saying I was way more prepared than they were. It's crazy to me because I put so many of my matches on the internet. It's not hard. If you have a match coming up with me, you can research all of my matches and prepare, and you could just do everything. Great. So when people lose to me, it's kind of weird. Why shouldn't you beat me handedly? You could see my entire game. That's kind of the gauntlet that I throw down. It's I said it before. It's only my move to do it better. That's kind of my issued challenge to the students, but to my competitors out there, to the competition out there. It's man, here's all my stuff, and hasn't really changed. And I think that's the perception that we all should have. We should say to ourselves that you're not vilifying the person across from you. They're just the tool that you get to flex on. You get to say, I have done the requisite amount of work. Now watch it in action. Sometimes it doesn't work out, right? Somebody could have a different set of skills that stymies any kind of plan you had, and that sucks. But if you're doing everything right, that should be a small portion of the time. You want to have a greater than 50-50 record. You don't want to be losing as much as you win, because that's never good. But you also have to accept that in the early points, your losses are going to be heavier than your wins. When you finally get to that point where you're starting to catch up and the numbers start to shift, keep that momentum, right? A story that I tell often is that my first 11 tournaments in jiu-jitsu, I didn't get a single match victory. Not grapples, tournaments, multiple matches per tournament. And I think the math ended up being 23 matches in a row losses. Now, if every tournament, we're just going to use guerrilla math. Let's say every tournament was 100 even dollars. That's a lot of money to spend losing. I'd spent roughly $1,100 in the pursuit of trying to find that first W. Now, the crazy thing is, and this is all something you can quantify. Around the time that I got back into jiu-jitsu, which was the fall of 2010, competition jiu-jitsu, that is, I had taken several years off from competing in grappling tournaments to get the skills because I was losing and losing and losing, and then I just stopped. I focused back on my training, and then before long, went back to competition and was just doing great. And I one win turned into two, turned into three, and I was like, oh my God, all of a sudden I went gold medal this next tournament back. Why is it that I was 0-23, take some years off, focus on my training, I come back, and then I got a gold medal? Holy cow. All right, let me do this again. A few weeks later, I go to another tournament. Now I got 2 gold medals. It would be 3 years before I would lose a jiu-jitsu competition again. And I got like 102 matches in a row of just wins. Now, those were local tournaments. The competition was chaotic because some days it was like really hard competition. Other days it was like, man, some of these people shouldn't be here. But it was blue belt jiu-jitsu, so nothing was crazy. Sometimes it's like a almost purple belt. Sometimes it's like a 5-stripe white belt, you know? You can never tell like who's showing up to the blue belt tournament. But that was a point in time when like my jiu-jitsu started to skyrocket. And then I remember my instructors back then while I was in the Marine Corps decided that it would be time to get me a purple belt. And then I started losing again. And it was great because it's like, oh, I'm up in competition. I'm in the advanced ranks and my game's getting exposed. But it was still fairly infrequent. And I remember like I can still count every single loss from purple belt to present day, and it's not a lot. And to say that in 15 years, I've lost, I think, 31 matches since, and I've had 400 total matches. I'm well past that 50-50 level of like, oh, you win as much as you lose, or you lose as much as you win. It's like, no, I got a lot of my losses in the beginning out of the way, accrued a ton of wins, figured out a recipe for success based on work ethic and preparation, game plan strategy, executing your strategy, being hydrated, being present, being in the moment, saying, I am aware of all my actions, not allowing adrenaline to get the better of you, not allowing external factors to cloud your judgments like